Hey everybody, NecroVMX here, and I'm playing a game called Cell Warfare. This actually wasn't on the request list, this is just a random flash game that I'm playing today because I wanted to tell you guys a story, and, well, none of the games on the request list was really conducive to just talking about something unrelated, so I just brought this up instead. I already kind of briefly talked about this yesterday on Facebook, on the official NecroVMX Facebook, which if you're not on it, you should be, because I do post a lot of like updates there, and sometimes like there'll be a day where I don't do videos, and people are like sending me messages on YouTube, like, you know, where have you been and stuff like that, and it's like, well, if you would have read my updates, you would have known. Well, it's true that you can post those things on YouTube. It doesn't go out to all the subscribers, and it's very difficult to actually get anyone to read that. So those bulletins. As a matter of fact, they may have even taken that functionality away. I'm gonna get out of here. So yeah, the post yesterday was, I said that I'm not doing videos because I'm at war with my neighbors, which is a little bit of an exaggeration, but I also posted a little bit about it early this morning. Well, it wasn't really early, but it was like 9 a.m. Oh, fuck your mother. I'm doing very badly here. So, basically, let me give you guys the backstory before I tell you what happened yesterday, because there's quite a lot of it. As some of you might know, I live in the country, so it's, you know, kind of like a quiet rural area. And, you know, that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing, at least. I do appreciate peace and quiet. And when I first moved here, which was quite a while ago, there was no neighbors on either side of me, which was, you know, pretty cool if you like peace and quiet and just being left alone. You know, and the neighbors, you know, eventually did come in. On one side, it's actually a relative that lives next to me, so that's sort of okay. I mean, it's not a relative that I particularly get along with anymore, although I used to. But it's better than just having some stranger, you know. So anyway, the lot on the other side. I was about to say the house, but before there was even a house there, I was just kind of hoping that nobody would buy it, you know, and or that somebody cool would buy it, at least somebody who, you know, isn't a douche. And these people moved in, and I'm not going to say their name or nothing, especially since I don't even remember it off the top of my head. But they moved in, and, you know, at first it was okay. They seemed okay, you know. They have like a ton of kids, and they had a dog, and, you know, they came over here a few times. We went over there a few times. It was all right. And then it started to get like a little weird. Like they started to get like really kind of needy and strange, and, you know, and it was just kind of getting a little uncomfortable with them, you know, because it was like, well, it's hard to explain, but we started getting along less and less, and started to see less and less of them, which is fine, because sometimes people don't, you know, necessarily, they're not compatible in that way. That what happened that really started to freak people out was their dog started like really wandering all over the whole neighborhood. They had this dog named Thumper, and she was just like go wherever she wants. They would leave her out, and she would just like kind of wander the neighborhood, and I'm gonna die here. Oh well. So anyway, I am gonna play again. I'm just gonna keep playing at least until I finish the story. Oh, Insane Legion. I must have unlocked that the other day. I was playing this the other day. So anyway, the dog, their dogs would play. Their dog would play with my dogs. I had the two dogs at the time, Aries and Xena, and sometimes the dog would come over here and shit on our yard, which is, that shouldn't happen. I really, it's bad enough you got to clean up your dog shit. You don't want to clean up other people's dog shit. You know what I mean? So, nobody really wants to clean up shit, but if you have a dog, it's a reality of life. But you definitely don't want to do it for other people. So, we asked them, could you make sure your dog doesn't come over here and, shit all over the place? And they were kind of like rude and defensive about it. And, they'll say, well, sometimes your dog comes over here, and like, yeah, but they don't shit over there. They're just going over there to play with your dog, which you've said is, all right. So we said, look, we'll keep our dog on our side. You keep your dog on your side. So for a while, that seemed like that was going to work out, And, we weren't really all that friendly anymore because of this whole drama with the dogs. But, hold on a second, actually. I got to move the microphone closer to me. Kicked because of that. Thank you. So anyway, like I said, one day the dog came over here, and you see, their dog Thumper got along really well with Aries, but didn't get along with my female dog at the time, Xena, and they got into like a big fight one day, and that's not good. You can't have these big dogs fighting with each other. So, that's when we told them, look, she can't come over here, like, at all. You need to control your dog, We already talked about this. And, time passed. Eventually their dog passed away, which is a shame, because it's a pretty cool dog and whatnot. And then they got these two new dogs. And these two new dogs, they don't keep it in the house at all. They keep it outside 24/7. This is an outside dog, and this includes in bad weather, in the winter, and in the summer heat. The two of them are always outside. I think they're allowed to like go in the garage, and that's it, which is ridiculous. And we did have issues with them coming over here a few times, but then they got this electronic shock collar thing, which is basically like there's like an area that the dogs are allowed to be in, and if they go outside the area, it would shock them. But the thing is, first of all, I think that's really cruel. I think it's something you shouldn't do to your pets. I think it's just better to keep them inside if you can't control them. So, but now they have like a million kids. It's like like they're fucking John and Kate over there. It's silly. So anyway, I want that. I'm giving you all the backstory. I haven't even gotten to the relevant part yet. So anyway, they keep the dogs outside, and that's a problem because sometimes they'll come over here despite the shock collar, or they'll be outside barking, just constantly barking. They bark at everything. They bark at each other. They bark at dogs they see. They bark at people on the road. They bark at cars. They bark at each other. And it's like really weird. Like we have like kids in the neighborhood that go by and they'll see like the two dogs like humping each other on the lawn. It's just crazy, and it's really just not a great situation over there. So. The barking, and I don't mean like for a few minutes. Everybody, who has dogs, you put them out, and sometimes they're gonna bark at things, and that's, you can't just get pissed at dogs for barking because that's what dogs do. But when the owners don't do anything about it, they just leave them out for hours and hours, or really days and days, without doing anything about it. That's an issue. That's not just the dog being annoying. That's a dog being a nuisance. And so eventually we called over there and said, hey, look, your dogs are outside and they've been barking for hours. Could you please put them inside, or at the very least get them to stop barking? You gotta control them in some way. And you know, their response, which was a really, I thought, a childish and defensive sort of like ridiculous response, was I'll call the police if you don't like it, which is like just inviting trouble, you know. So eventually it got to the point where you know, we couldn't just grin and bear it. It was ridiculous. I mean, just imagine 2 dogs outside barking for hours, just non-stop. Very, very irritating. So eventually we did call the police, well, the local security, because we live in a gated community. So anyway, called the police, and they would come over and tell them, look, you gotta keep your dogs quiet, put them inside, anything, you gotta, you know, you're being a nuisance. We got complaints, and I'm not the only one in the neighborhood who's complained about this either. So anyway, just make sure this microphone is in a good position, because a couple of days ago I did videos and my voice was very low. It seems fine based on the waveform, but it was just weird. How many enemies is this? 1,500? That's not so bad. I should be able to do this. So anyway, eventually it got to the point where every time their dogs were going on for more than like an hour, we'd call the police. Usually it would be me that would call. And then they would come over and tell them, you gotta quiet your dogs down. And it's like I said, everybody who has dogs, they bark. You know, that's what they do. You know, you can't just say, oh, you know, dogs can never bark. It's not like I would hear them go arf arf and then, you know, grab the phone, because that would not be right. It would only when it was going on for at least an hour. Usually I would wait longer, actually. And the big problem was that a lot of times they weren't even home. They would just leave the house and like go to, you know, work or whatever. And that whole time, the dogs were outside barking, and they can't quiet them down because they're not even there. So, and that's another issue. They're leaving them out, and they're not even there, you know. So, I mean, imagine doing that. I think it's cruel. So, anyway, eventually they got a fine. They got a ticket that I guess they had to pay. I don't know if they paid it or whatever. It's not really my business. But they got a fine, and that didn't stop it. Well, it stopped them for like about a month, and then again it started happening. For about a month, they would do the right thing. Like whenever the dogs would start barking, they would come out and quiet them down, or put them in the garage if they couldn't quiet them down. So they were doing the right thing for a while, but then, you know, they got lazy, and they're like, oh, why should we have to care for our dogs? You know, that kind of attitude. And so what they did was they started doing it again, and we call again, and they get another ticket. And it would kind of happen again and again. And, you know, they know that we were the ones who were calling, and they tried to retaliate. And this was about 3.5 years ago when they tried to retaliate by calling and saying that our dog, Xena, had gone over to their property, and they were complaining to security about that. And this was a really unfortunate timing for 2 reasons. One is because this was actually the day of my sister's wedding, and we were all preparing for that. So I was outside. I was actually keeping an eye on the ring while the photographer took pictures of it, and then we were putting down the path, like the path of what do you call it, the train that my sister had to walk on, which didn't work out because it was so windy that it kept blowing it away. So let's play one more, I guess, because I'm getting near the end of this storyline here. And all of a sudden, the security and the police were coming, and they talked to us and said, well, we've had a complaint that your dog is going over next door, and this, you know, they were complaining about Xena. And the second reason that the timing was unfortunate was that Xena was no longer with us. She had died like a month previous. So and it wasn't our other dog. It wasn't Aries, because we knew he couldn't be trusted. Because he was a wanderer, so he would put him on a tie down, and it was a very, he had a good amount of area to run around, but he couldn't go anywhere near anybody else's property. And I even took the tie down and showed how it didn't even reach to our driveway, much less, their property. And the policewoman said, well, I get what's going on here. You called and complained about their dogs barking, and they're trying to retaliate, and we know that your dogs aren't, the dog they're talking about isn't even alive anymore. I mean, and that's like also kind of a kick in the gut to be reminded of that, So anyway, that's why when we got Aria as our current dog, we actually built, this whole deck, and we have a fenced-in area on the property that she goes in. We open the back door, she goes right out the back door, and she's in a fenced-in area where she can run around, and she has no way of getting out of it because it's like a 6-foot high fence. Well, it's not 6, it's like 5 feet high. So, so that was sort of their petty revenge. So recently it was getting really bad with the dogs again, and we called over there again and complained again, and they got another ticket. And this, I don't know how many they've gotten, at least like half a dozen. At least. That's a conservative estimate. Because they've been here for years, So anyway, they tried their most recent retaliation yesterday, which really involved declaring war on the entire neighborhood. So what they did is, and I just want to say another thing actually before I tell you guys this, is that I work 2 jobs. I don't say what one is. I never talk about the one. But one of them, the one that you guys know, is I work at Kazarth Studios making games, and then I also have another job. And that other job is at night. It runs from midnight until 8 a.m. And the reason I don't talk about it is because it's a healthcare job, and I don't, there's certain issues of confidentiality. The only thing I'll say is that it involves looking after people who have brain damage. So I like to joke that it's just like YouTube. Obviously it's not. But anyway, so I work at night and I sleep during the day, and I am not about to put up with a whole lot of noise in the middle of the day. I mean, I understand that most people are awake and there's going to be some element of noise, but I'm not going to put up with people being a nuisance, and this is what they started doing. They got their whole clan, mom and dad and 50 kids, and they set themselves up in their driveway outside the garage and started screaming their heads off, like whooping and hooting and hollering and screaming and yelling, and this woke me up the other day at about 3 p.m. I usually wake up at around 5 and then do my Kazarth stuff until about 11, and then I go to the other job until 8, and I come home and then go to sleep, And it's a system that's been working for me, but if you're screaming your head off next door, I'm not going to put up with it. So they started with the screaming, and then they expanded it to blowing air horns, and I swear one of them busted out a saxophone and started playing that. And there was a chainsaw going at one point, and you know how loud those things are. They were banging on things, just yelling as loud as possible. And then they started blasting music. They started blasting country music. Basically, they had the car out in the driveway, and I was surrounded. Well, yeah, they had the car out in the driveway, and had all the doors open, and they had this country music blasting at top volume. And it doesn't get much whiter than that, really, to be honest. Well, you know what? Since this is the only video I'm doing today, I'll play another one, but I'll play Medium Legion, because I'm still not all the way through this story. And I know a lot of people on the Facebook were looking forward to hearing this after yesterday's posts. So anyway, and by the way, this behavior, I actually have this on video. I was gonna put it up on YouTube, but I decided not to do that just yet, unless they do it again, and I'll film it again, because I only have like about a minute of it, and I would like to kind of compile it all together if they continue this, and make like one big video of it. So if it continues, I will do that. So like I said, they were screaming, they were playing incredibly loud country music outside. They were hooting, hollering, making a ruckus, and also banging on things, blowing on air horns, just making as much noise as they possibly could. And this started at, like I said, around 3, and I was sort of just waiting for them to get bored and stop, because calling the police itself is sort of a hassle. It's not something that you just do, Eventually I said, I'm not ready to put up with this, and I called the police, and I spoke to an officer who I explained. I said, look, our idiot, actually I used a lot of interesting language when I called because I was pissed off. I think I called them my honky-tonk cracker idiot neighbors are blasting country music and hooting and hollering and screaming their heads off, blowing air horns, and they're being crazy and they're making as much noise as possible. And he said, I'll be right over. And he came over, and even when he was there talking to them, they still had the music blasting. You got to be considerate to other people. I mean, if you like listening to I love listening to music, and I love it at kind of a loud volume, but I don't like disturbing other people, so I buy headphones, and I use the headphones, And if I want to use the speakers, you got to put it at a volume that's not disturbing, like, people next door. And the houses are not even like right next to each other. Like I said, I'm in the country. There's quite a bit of space between each house. So anyway, yeah, I called. They came over. Eventually, got them to stop. And I went to work at 11:30. Came home this morning, and well, I'll tell you what happened. They were doing, actually, when I was driving, coming home, the neighbor was actually also driving home from, like, dropping the kids off at the school bus stop, and he was right ahead of me. So I saw him pull into his driveway, and I was pulling into my driveway, and he immediately started it up. And then I found out that he'd been doing it since 7 a.m. At 7 a.m. he started with the country music and the hooting and the yeehaw and all that shit. I mean, like I said, that's God, you're white, So anyway, it was like 7 a.m. they started doing it. He only stopped doing it to bring his kids to the school bus stop. And then as soon as he got back, which is coincidentally when I got home, he started doing it again. And I said, nah, I'm not putting up with it. Last night, before, when he did the first time, I waited like quite a while before I called the police. In this case, I was like, he's got 5 minutes before I call him. And I wound up calling and after 5 minutes, and they came by and made him knock it off again. Actually, coincidentally, he had stopped doing it like right after I got off the phone with the police. He had no way of knowing, but I guess he just decided to stop. But they were aware of the previous complaint and everything, and I actually, like I said, I have it on video from this morning that they were doing it. And it wasn't as bad, like the volume wasn't as bad, but like I said, I'm about to go to sleep, and I wasn't about to put up with that. So they made them stop it, and it's just sort of like, I actually spoke to the officer afterwards and asked, like what they said. Like, what was the excuse? And I mean, it was a lot of lies. they said, "Oh, your dog comes over there," and I was like, "No, our dog only goes in a fenced-in area." They're talking about an incident from like 5 years ago, and the dog's no longer even alive. And they said that neighbors on the other side, which is, like I said, a family member of mine, that they have a dog that also barks like crazy, and that we don't complain about that, and that we're just targeting them unfairly. And actually, we have complained about that, but in that case, that's my uncle next door. Would actually call him directly and say, like, dude, your fucking dog's been on the porch barking for an hour. Are you going to do something about it? And he'll apologize. We don't really get along, but we're civil, and he'll apologize and bring the dog in, and then it'll stop. If we try to call these idiots and say, your dogs have been outside for several hours screaming their heads off, they'll say, fuck you, call the police if you don't like it. So, and then, oh, we're being unfairly targeted, which is bullshit. And, my uncle's dog, I haven't even heard, that in a long time, because that dog was like 15 years old and actually died, a few weeks ago. Dog lived a really long time, but eventually, they don't live forever. So, that's another situation where they were complaining about a dog that wasn't even alive anymore. So, like I said, this is an ongoing thing. It's actually been going on for years, and I only posted about it yesterday because after dealing with them and dealing with the police and not knowing if it was going to start up again, I didn't want to do videos not knowing if they were going to start doing it in the middle, and then I would have to stop and call the police again and deal with that. So I didn't want to do videos yesterday. So whenever I don't do videos, like whenever it's scheduled but I don't do them, I always post on the Facebook sort of the reason why, so that people know that I'm not just slacking off, So in that case, I said, look, it's actually kind of a funny story. I'll explain it in tomorrow's videos. And because it's a long story, I decided instead of doing a request video, I would just play a flash game and sort of tell you guys the story while I'm playing something kind of mindless. And because it was going to take a while, I decided to make this the only video. I'm at nearly a half hour here. And this entire video has just been the story. And this has been a fraction of the issues with them, but it is kind of a funny story that I have these idiots next door that behave in this childish manner, and like I said, they gotta, when I called this morning, I spoke to a different officer, and he's like, hold on, I'm in a car, let me pull over so I can listen to you, and I told him the whole thing, what they were doing, and that we had called last night to complain about it, and now they're doing it again, and they've been doing it since 7 a.m. And by the way, it was around 9 a.m. that I called, so they'd been doing it for 2 hours. And, and he's like, what's their address? And I gave the address, and he's like, wait, is this the people with the dogs? And I'm like, yeah, it's the people with the dogs. And he's like, I just gave them a summons the other day. And I was like, well, I think that's kind of why they're doing this, because they got fined and pissed off about it, so they've declared war on the whole neighborhood. And I feel bad for the officers, because whenever they go over there, these people yell and scream and they point and gesticulate wildly, and it's like they can't even calmly. It's like the idiot. It's like watching like a reality show unfold next door. It's sad, but it's also kind of funny in retrospect. So I knew you guys would want to hear about that. Just imagine it, like I said, this is a really nice area. It's a quiet area, and we get along with pretty much everybody except for these idiots. Like I said, there's family issues with the other side, and that's why we don't really talk to my uncle, but that's a private matter, and that's a whole nother issue, and but we're civil to each other. There's no war, there's no blasting loud music, so like I said, they were just making as much noise as possible, and nobody in the area, and they may be aiming it at us, but they're also disturbing everybody else. And we have some people who are older, we have some people with health issues in the neighborhood, and you have people who work at night like me and sleep during the day and don't need to hear that shit. So, get a life, Stop being a douche and just get a life, and stop being childish and petty. This isn't YouTube. This is reality. This isn't a playground. So, like I say, it's almost like a reality show that unfolds next door, except you're this unwitting participant. I mean, imagine living next door to the Jersey Shore douches, and you have to deal with that every day, and then it's sort of like that, except they're rednecks, and just want to let them know that nobody wants to hear their, shitty zombie sneak attack cover band that they're doing outside, So anyway, that's going to be it. I'm going to stop here, and I'll see you guys, let's see, it's Friday. I'm planning on not doing anything over the weekend other than working on some stuff, Gamers Encyclopedia and some Kazara Studio stuff that and of course working my other job, but for videos. But if there's an update or anything, I'll definitely do an update, and I'll let you guys know, because like I said, it's frustrating for me because I'm living in this situation, but I'm aware of the fact that it is funny from an outside perspective, so I figured I'd share that with you guys. See you guys on Monday.